This video is a tutorial on the Tim Genis Signature Series Vic Firth mallets. The following models can be applied to this video: the Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 5, Gen 6, Gen 7, Gen 8. When you order your felt recovering kit, you'll receive a pair of outer felts. If you order the cuticle scissors, you'll receive a pair of those as well. The following two items can be bought at any local hardware store. First, some crazy glue. Second, a pair of heavy-duty gardener's gloves. And the last item can be bought from any percussion specialist like Steve Weiss, which is a timpani voicer. When removing your old covering, take your cuticle scissors, insert at the bottom of the shaft into the outer layer, and cut. Be careful when cutting this outer layer, because underneath there might be an inner layer which you don't want to cut. Pull apart the outer covering and remove. You'll notice that when you compare the old covering with my new covering, they're quite different. The old covering has wedges, mine does not. Don't be alarmed by this, they're supposed to be different. Step 2. Preparing your new felt for the rewrap. Before installing your felt, you'll need to stretch it out a bit. Take your thumbs and pull out both directions at different parts of the felt, like so. You'll notice that there are two sets of threads coming out of the felt. The threads coming out of this side is what's called the hard side of the felt. The other set of threads comes out between the two flaps of felt. And if you turn the felt over, this is the soft side of the felt. You'll want to start with the soft side of the felt down and the hard side up. You'll have two sets of threads coming out of the hard side. The one with the knot goes to the left. The one without the knot goes to the right. The other set of threads can just be put aside for now. Step 3. Installing the felt. Now, take your mallet, put it in the center on top of the hard side. Now with your left hand, pull up the felt where the knot is and hold it at the bottom of the core with the left hand. Take the unknotted piece of thread and pull to the right until the felt starts closing. As it's closing, squeeze a little bit on different parts of the felt like so. Squeeze again and pull with the other hand. You're basically going to be squeezing and pulling at the same time. You're going to pull with a great amount of force, and when things start to get too tight, where you start ripping your hand apart, it's time for the garden glove. This will go on your right hand, your pulling hand. Wrap the thread around one finger of the garden glove so you have some leverage, and start pulling again. You're going to want to try to be able to hold the stick and keep the tension at the same time. This is key. It has to be a tight wrap. So pull some more, wrap it around the finger, pull again, and your goal is to get it to close up completely around the shaft so that there is no open spaces. This might just take a little bit of doing back and forth of squeezing and pulling, squeezing and pulling until you have a nice tight wrap. Remember, this is only the first layer. We're going to do this again with the other outer layer. You'll want to secure it by holding the stick and keeping the tension like so. Takes a little bit of practice, but it's possible. Once you do that, your other hand will become free. Now, you're going to take the other thread, you're going to loop it around and through and tie a knot, like so. You're going to have to do this 6 or 7 times. And you'll want to keep the tension while you do at least 3 or 4 of them, so it doesn't become loose. Once you've done your fourth knot, you can remove the garden glove and tie 2 more knots. Tie at least 6 knots. 7 is fine too. Once you're done tying your knots, take out your crazy glue and dab a little bit at the knots that you just tied. This will secure the knots so that they don't come undone. Now take your cuticle scissors and you can cut the excess thread that you just tied. Don't cut too close to the knot. Leave a little bit of space. You can now take your cuticle scissors and push the knots underneath the felt so that you can't see them. The felt may have bunched up a little bit when you pulled things tight. If you pull the outer lip away, you can see that you have bumps in the part that you already sewed. You can take your cuticle scissors now and just trim those bumps a bit to get it so that it lies a little bit more flat when you close up the second layer, which is going to be on top of this. Be very careful not to cut too deep because you don't want to cut the thread that you already sewed. Once you're done trimming, remove all the excess little pieces of felt. And now we're going to do the same thing that we just did with the other pieces of thread. So put the knotted piece of thread to the left and put the other thread, which is longer, to the right. You want to squeeze with the left hand and pull with the right hand to the right. Squeeze a little bit more and take out your garden glove one more time. Put the garden glove on the right hand, wrap around the finger, squeeze with the left hand, and pull with the right hand. You're going to pull with a great amount of force. Try to always pull to the right. Once you get it nice and secure by squeezing and pulling, you can hold the stick and keep the tension, and then do the same looping knots that you did before, trying to hold that tension while you do. After you've done 3 or 4 knots, you can take off your glove and tie at least 2 more. I would go for 7 knots on this outer layer. Once done with that, grab your crazy glue, put a dab on the knot, take your cuticle scissors, and cut the excess of the thread, not too close to the knot. Leave about 1/4 of an inch of thread. Now, you can take your scissors and push the threads underneath so you can't see them. Be very careful not to accidentally cut the thread. Now, you're going to take your cuticle scissors and trim away the bulging that happened on the outside of the felt. Again, do not cut too deep because you don't want to cut the thread by accident. Once done with this, remove the excess pieces of felt and you should have a nice, clean, firm wrap. Once you're happy with your wrap, it's nice and tight on the core, take out your voicer, start where the logo is so you'll have a reference of where you started and where you'll end. Start at the top part of the mallet and you're going to prick out the outermost layer of felt. You're going to pull and prick at the same time. Don't dig too deep because you just want to pull out the outermost layer of felt. I start at the top, go a few pulls, and move down, like so. Depending upon what mallet you have, you might need to do more or less of this voicing. It's always good to do this and then test it at the timpani after you're done. Once I've gone all the way around the stick, returning to the logo, then I just pull out a little bit of the top part of the mallet to give it a little bit of height. Once you're done with this, take your hand and squeeze the mallet, like so. This just recompacts the felt a little bit, but now it'll have a much more tonal type of sound and a much more refined type of sound. After a final inspection, and everything looks good to you, voila! You've got your rewrapped mallet. Now, all you have to do is do the same thing with the other mallet. Once done, test both of them at the timpani to make sure that they match. If one is a bit harder than the other, you might need to voice one or the other to make them even and matching. I hope this was helpful. Any questions? Just go to timgenis.com and go to the contacts page. Shoot me a letter, let me know what the problem is. I'll get right back to you. See ya!